Welcome to the debate. So imagine standing in front of a native speaker, trying to introduce yourself in a language you barely know. Your heart races, your mind just totally blanks.
Right, it's a terrifying moment.
Yeah, that panic is pretty universal for English learners. And the real question is, how do we actually arm a beginner for that exact second? Like, do we give them a comprehensive, predictable sequence to rely on? Or do we, teach them to hyper-focus on just the immediate context?
Well, that is the core tension here. Because if you ask a beginner to memorize a sprawling list of personal details, you aren't making them fluent. You're really just overloading their working memory. True confidence, I think, comes from stripping away everything except what is strictly necessary for that specific room.
Okay, but structure provides a psychological safety net, right? The framework we're looking at organizes a self-introduction into clear, logical steps. So we start with core identity, name, age, location, and then move outward to profession, family, pets, and preferences.
That's a lot of data for a beginner to hold in their head.
It sounds like a lot, sure, but having standardized sentences like, I live in a big city, or I have a brown dog, means they aren't guessing. They have a reliable roadmap. If they master these categories, they just don't have to invent language on the spot.
Except reciting a 7-step list isn't an introduction. It's a monologue. Think about the cognitive load involved there.
I don't think it's necessarily a monologue.
Well, you're asking someone whose brain is already working in overdrive, translating syntax to suddenly juggle their age, their sister's piano lessons, and, their preference for pizza over pasta all at once. If you throw 6 balls at a novice juggler, they drop all of them.
Okay, let's follow that juggling metaphor, actually. I would argue that you have to teach the learner the weight and feel of every single ball in practice, just so they don't panic on stage.
But do they need to juggle all 6 at the party?
The goal of this progression isn't to force a robotic data dump. Is to equip them with simple contrasting templates. So a beginner learns to say, I am a student, I love cats, but I don't like waking up early. Mastering those categories beforehand completely removes the pressure of the unknown.
Right, but
They are ready for any follow-up question because they already possess the vocabulary.
the material itself explicitly warns against that kind of data dump. It clearly states you don't need to say everything at one time. The mechanism of language anxiety is tied directly to having too many choices.
So you're saying less is more.
Exactly. When a learner tries to recall that they like green but dislike olives, while also trying to remember basic verb conjugations, the brain's language centers just freeze. Simplicity isn't about memorizing every category. It's about looking at the environment and picking just one relevant detail to pair with your name.
Wait, doesn't that demand an incredibly high cognitive load, though? Expecting a beginner to spontaneously analyze a social environment, filter through their limited vocabulary, and adapt on the fly? That seems far more paralyzing than just reciting a well-practiced script.
It actually does the exact opposite. Context eliminates the need to filter because the environment makes the choice for you.
How so?
Well, if you walk into a classroom, the unwritten rule is you state your name and why you're learning English. If you're at a party, you share your name and a hobby, like, painting or rock music. By limiting the introduction to the immediate context, you transform a terrifying memory test into a natural invitation.
An invitation for a follow-up, you mean?
Right. An invitation for the other person to say, oh, what kind of music? You aren't building a wall of text. You're really just throwing one ball back.
I understand the appeal of brevity, I really do, but relying purely on the environment leaves the learner incredibly vulnerable if the conversation suddenly pivots. A comprehensive mastery of those core categories from profession to family to hobbies ensures they're universally equipped to keep the conversation going, no matter where it turns.
And I'd counter that the best way to keep a conversation going is to actually start one naturally. Keeping an introduction brief and strictly tied to the immediate situation respects the brain's limits. It removes the fear of perfection, prioritizing, authentic human connection over rehearsed recitation.
Well, there is clearly a profound difference between walking into a room with every piece of your identity mapped out in advance versus stepping in with just the single right phrase for the moment. We leave it to you to decide which philosophy truly unlocks a beginner's potential to connect.